Good evening to you all. Today, we'll be talking in the 8th episode about Surah At-Tawbah, and it's titled, They Disbelieved in Allah and His Messenger. Those who criticize the believers who give charity willingly, and those who can only give what little they have, and so they mock them, Allah mocks them in return, and for them is a painful punishment. The reason for this revelation: if a believer gives a lot in charity, the hypocrites say he's just showing off. And if he gives a small amount, they say, Allah has no need for his charity. So this verse was revealed to respond to their mockery and sneering. The meaning is that those hypocrites who mock the believers will be punished by Allah for their ridicule, with disgrace in this world and torment in the hereafter. The source is Al-Wasit fi Tafsir al-Quran by Sheikh Mohammed Syed Tantawi. The question here says, so they mock them, meaning the hypocrites mock the believers, and then it says, Allah mocks them, meaning the hypocrites. Does Allah mock the hypocrites in the same way they mock the believers? Tit for tat. It means Allah mocks, ask forgiveness for them or do not ask forgiveness for them. Even if you ask forgiveness for them 70 times, Allah will never forgive them. That is because they disbelieved in Allah and His Messenger, and Allah does not guide the defiantly disobedient people. The meaning is that Allah is telling the Prophet, whether you ask forgiveness for the hypocrites or you don't, Allah will not forgive them. Why? Because they disbelieved in Allah and His Messenger. The source here is Majma al-Bayan fi Tafsir al-Quran by al-Tabasi. The questions here say, because they disbelieved in Allah and His Messenger, this part that's underlined. Does the Messenger have the same status as Allah when it comes to disbelief and faith in them both? The second question says, and Allah does not guide the defiantly disobedient people. So, who will Allah guide then? The believing people. The third question. What is the wisdom behind repeating the word for them 4 times in the verse? The fourth question. If we remove this entire sentence, what deficiency would affect the text? The ones who stayed behind rejoiced at staying back, contrary to the Messenger of Allah, and they disliked striving with their wealth and their lives in the way of Allah. And they said, do not go forth in the heat. Say, the fire of hell is more intense in heat, if only they understood. The meaning here is that the hypocrites, who stayed behind instead of going out with the Prophet to the Battle of Tabuk for jihad, asked his permission to stay behind and sit out, so he gave them permission and left them sitting in Medina for certain reasons. What are those reasons? First, they were stingy and didn't want to spend money to support the jihad. Second, they actually hated the idea of going out for jihad with the Prophet. Third, they kept discouraging, demoralizing, and undermining the believers, urging them not to fight, saying things like, it's way too hot, not realizing that the heat of hell is far more intense than the heat of this world. The source is Fath al-Qadir by al-Shakani. The questions here say, and they hated to fight in jihad. Is it the hypocrites who hated to go out for jihad, or was it God Himself who disliked their participation in jihad? Here's the verse, but Allah disliked their going forth, so He held them back. That's from Surah At-Tawbah. Verse 46. We mentioned this before, if you remember. So it was God Himself who disliked their going out, so that they wouldn't discourage the believers from jihad. The second question says, say, the fire of hell is more intense in heat. Does it really need a text to emphasize that hell is hotter? Let them laugh a little and weep much as a recompense for what they used to earn. The meaning here is that God is saying, let the hypocrites who stayed behind and didn't go out with the Prophet to Tabuk laugh during their short time in this temporary world, and let them weep much in the everlasting hereafter as a punishment for them. For what reason? For their cowardice. The source is Lubab al-Tawil fi Marani al-Tanzil by Al-Kazin. The question here is, why did God postpone the punishment of the hypocrites to the hereafter, even though he punished other peoples in this world, like the people of Tamad, Pharaoh, Lot, and others? So if God brings you back to a group of them and they ask your permission to go out, to battle, say, you will never go out with me again, nor will you ever fight an enemy with me. You were content to stay behind the first time, so stay with those who remain behind. The meaning. If God brings you back from Tabuk to Medina, O Muhammad, you will find believers who had real excuses for not going out with you to jihad because of them. And there is another group of believers who have no excuse, but they repented from hypocrisy and regretted staying behind and not going out with you for jihad, so forgive them. But if this group asks to go out with you in another battle, why should you refuse? Because their going out with you would bring about many harms, as it was previously stated. If they had gone out with you, they would have only caused you trouble. At-Tawbah 47. And tell them, you will never go out with me, nor will you fight with me against any enemy ever again. Because you were content to stay behind and not go out with me the first time, at Tabuk, so now stay behind with those who stayed behind like you. The source here is Fath al-Qadir by al-Shakani. The question here says, so if you return, which refers to, if God brings you back to Medina, if he returns you once again. Doesn't God know whether the Prophet will return to Medina or not? And never pray over any of them who dies, nor stand at his grave. They disbelieved in God and his messenger, and died as Evilders. The reason for the revelation of this verse is that Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul, while on his deathbed, requested to see the Prophet, to be shrouded in the Prophet's shirt, and for the Prophet to pray over him if he died. So the Prophet came and saw Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul, and then the man died. Then the Prophet stood to pray over him. But Umar ibn al-Khattab stood between the Prophet and the Qibla to prevent him from praying over him. So the verse was revealed in agreement with Umar ibn al-Khattab. Revelation agreed with Umar in many verses, such as the beheading of the captives of Bad and not taking ransom from them, the prohibition of alcohol, the change of the Qibla, and the imposition of hijab. Here, the Prophet says, if I had not been sent, you, Umar, would have been sent as a prophet. Who is the source here? Maft al-Gaib by al-Razi. The question here is, why did God agree with Umar ibn al-Khattab and not agree with the Prophet Muhammad in his wish to pray over Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul? The second question says, they disbelieved in God and his messenger. Is the messenger equal to God in the same rank when it comes to disbelief and faith in both? And do not be impressed by their wealth and children. God only intends to punish them through these in this world, and for their souls to depart while they are disbelievers. The meaning. God is telling the Prophet Muhammad, O Muhammad, do not be deceived by the abundance of their wealth. That is, do not be impressed or dazzled by how much wealth and how many children they have, because God wants to punish them with this wealth in this world, to make things harder for them, and to make it difficult for them to spend on jihad. All right, fine. The same source here is asking a question. What is the secret? Or why is the text of verse 35 repeated word for word in verse 55 of Surah At-Tawbah? What's the secret behind this? And I'll show you the text of both verses right here. See for yourself what the difference is between them. The first one, there's no difference except for one word here. Look what it says. Do not be impressed by their wealth or their children. The verse continues below. Do not be impressed by their wealth or their children. Rather, Allah wants to punish them with it in this world. Same thing below. Rather, Allah wants to punish them with it in this world. Very good. Then it says, and their souls depart while they are disbelievers. In verse 35, it repeats the same thing. So what's the reason? He said, no, now the source is answering. He says that verse 35, the one we're discussing, refers to the hypocrites. But as for verse 35, it refers to other peoples. So who are these other peoples? Man, he said, I don't know who they are. The source here is Al-Tabarani's Al-Tafsir Al-Kabir. The question here is, rather, Allah wants to punish them with it in this world. If Allah wants to punish them with wealth in this world, then why did He grant them wealth in the first place? It would have been better to punish them with poverty. And when a surah is revealed, enjoining, believe in Allah and strive with His messenger, those of them with wealth ask your permission and say, let us be with those who stay behind. The meaning here is that Allah is addressing the hypocrites directly, rebuking them and saying, and when Surah At-Tawbah is revealed, commanding the hypocrites to believe and strive, their leaders will ask your permission to stay behind and lag with those who have valid excuses, like the sick and women. Source: Wagarib al-Quran wa Rarib al-Firkin by al-Kumi al-Nisaburi. The question here says, wa Ida, which means if a surah is revealed. Doesn't Allah know whether a surah will be revealed or not? The second question asks, why is Unzilat was revealed in the passive voice? Unzilat is in the passive form. Even though the one who reveals the surah is known, it's Allah. They were content to remain with those who stay behind, and their hearts were sealed, so they do not understand the meaning. And those who were content, meaning the hypocrites, to stay behind with the women and not go out with you, O Muhammad, for jihad. So Allah sealed their hearts, which had reached such a level of disbelief that it was as if they had died to the verse, to faith. Thus, they do not comprehend the secrets of Allah's wisdom regarding the matter of jihad, which is true happiness. Nor do they understand the misery and poverty that come from staying behind and not participating in jihad. The source here is Gharib al-Quran wa Ragharib al-Furqan by al-Kumi al-Nisaburi. The question here says, and He sealed their hearts, which is the part highlighted in red. So, why did He seal their hearts? Because they did not go out for jihad, meaning there was a state of anger upon them because they did not go out with the Prophet in the Battle of Tabuk. This is in the verse we're discussing, verse 87. So, what about them in verse 83? Say, you shall never go out with me again, nor fight any enemy with me. The second question says, and He sealed their hearts, is it and He sealed or so He sealed, with the FA indicating causation, as a response to their refusal to go out with the Prophet. The last point here, why was sealed constructed in the passive form, even though the one who sealed their hearts is known, it is God? But the messenger and those who believed with him strove with their wealth and their lives, and those are the ones who will have the good things, and those are the successful ones. The meaning here is that the messenger and the believers with him who went out to strive with their lives and wealth in the Battle of Tabuk. These people receive the benefits mentioned in the verse, victory and spoils in this world, and paradise and bliss in the hereafter. The source: Ishod al-Aql al-Salim ila Mazaya al-Kitab al-Karim by Abu al-Suyud. The question here is, do the Prophet and those who strove with him, who went out to Tabuk and fought with their lives and wealth, really need confirmation that they will have the good things and that they are the successful ones? The second question: what is the wisdom behind repeating the word those, eulereka, twice in the verse? I mean, if we said, and those will have the good things and they are the successful ones, what would be missing, or what flaw would affect the text? Allah has prepared for them gardens beneath which rivers flow, where they will abide forever. That is the great triumph. The meaning here is that Allah has prepared for the Prophet and the believers who went out to strive in Tabuk with their lives and wealth. He has prepared for them in the hereafter gardens and bliss in which they will dwell for eternity. The source is Ishod al-Aql al-Salim ila Mazaya al-Kitab al-Karim by Abu al-Suyud. The question is, what is the difference between verse 89 and the previous verse, 88? Both are talking about the Prophet and the believers, and it is the same reward because they strove with their lives and wealth. Thank you very much, and I will see you in the next episode.